Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche pregame presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Use code DNVR when you sign up for a new account. You get amazing odds boosts every single day. We're going to speed run this pregame. had some fun little Goaties videos to do beforehand, so keep your eyes peeled for those. Check them out. Come down to the bar on Saturday. Come hang out with us. We're going to be a fun little show. And by show, I mean we're all going to get drunk, and you can come get drunk with us. So I highly recommend it.
It's going to be interactive drunks.
Yeah, exactly.
I need that bad right now.
Everyone's going to be having a good time. So be sure to show up to that. Avs taking on the Blackhawks tonight. Pavel Francouz in net for Colorado. What is there to say about this team? They're just rolling right now.
Thoughts on Frankie going in?
Okay.
Cool.
I mean, it's just kind of interesting, right? Like Kemper played really well last year.
Sure.
Yeah, but
not that Frankie obviously didn't.
obviously you trust your backup after what he's been doing, the stretch of games that he's
but
played, right?
I think it's interesting that they're not giving Darcy Kemper 3 or 4 games.
Sure.
They're like, hey, we're going right back to Frankie.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe it's like a workload thing, right? Like the workload's been a little less for Kemper, and he's been playing better. So
this is why I think it's interesting, because I wonder, like, it's every other day. They only have the one road game until the All-Star break.
Right.
They're on a 3-4 game homestand right now. Like, there's not like the workload is consistent, but it's not overly demanding.
Sure, yeah.
And coming off of last week, I mean, he only played the last 2 games of that. So he got LA and then he got Montreal, and then it's like, we're right back to Frankie already. I thought it was an interesting decision. I fully expected Frankie would play this week. I just thought it might be
A little bit later.
Yeah, I thought Kemper would get tonight, and then Kemper would definitely get Boston.
Yeah.
And
I don't
then
think there was
was
any doubt
expecting
Kemper
to see,
was getting Boston.
Yeah, and then I thought we would see Frankie. So I just thought it was like no issues with it. Obviously, both goalies are playing well, so I'm like, whatever.
I mean, I like Blais's point. You look at the last 2 games Kemper played, and they're like, these are 2 of the best games he's had in an Avalanche uniform, and they come immediately after, maybe due to injury, but a little bit of a break there for him. Maybe you take a look at that and say, hey, this guy seems good when he gets a third day off.
This is what happens when you have a real backup.
Yeah.
You don't have to play a guy 9 of 10.
Right.
And it's kind of crazy, too, because it's a divisional rival, but
They suck.
Look what the Blackhawks have been doing the last 2 games against the Wild. It's like, maybe this is a good time to play Frankie as well, just to keep on with that trend of having really good, outings for Frankie.
Are the Avs that team now? Are the Avs the team that play their backup against divisional teams just out of spite?
I mean, outside of the timing of it, this is pretty consistent with how Bednar has gone when he's had 2 goalies he's comfortable with.
Yeah,
that's fair. Just curious that after so many years of watching teams like Detroit play their backup against Colorado, which eventually became not, in conference anymore.
Not viable.
Yeah. But, it's just maybe that's that little extra jab, That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying there. So it should be interesting. Other than Francouz, lineup is expected to be the same for Colorado. Murray skated in a no contact, but he's the only one that's skating at this point of the.
Can his regular jersey be a no contact?
It feels like it needs to be.
Yeah.
Doesn't last very long in the full contact realm, so not too sure on that one. But we'll see. We'll see as things develop there. That's not too relevant to tonight. On the forward side, what are your vibes? Well, let's go with this. What do you think your vibes are? Because it's been a couple of quiet nights for the top line.
That's about to end.
Yeah?
First game back off of a road trip, even if it's just the quick back-to-back.
It's always a little bit
feels,
of
it can feel like a third road game, right?
Yeah.
Or an extra road game.
Because it's a different city, right?
Because we've flown into a different city, now we're here. Even though it's your home, you're still kind of going through the road process. And now that they are like they're home, like they're into their routines, families, and all of that. Like I expect them to be, and they just don't stay quiet long.
Yeah,
it's been too many years of this line being together and this line being dominant together, not pretty good or solid. They just don't string together bad games. And this has been their worst stretch of the season. And you know that their worst stretch of the season is always like
3-4 games. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're in that zone already after last week where they just didn't play very good hockey.
I think the other part that you see of that too, right, is like we always talk about, like you're going in to play Montreal, right, at home, and it was like the first few shifts they look like you're like, oh wow, they're going to dominate, and then they just played down to Montreal's level.
And they gave so much that they created back throughout the game where you're like, oh, okay, and it was especially the top line that seemed apathetic about taking care of their own end, and when they are fully engaged and they have just decided, hey, we're going to go do our thing, and they're even when they're playing like to 90% of their potential, it's not. They're like no. I mean, Chicago's obviously nobody takes Chicago seriously as like a contender anymore.
Yep.
But I wonder if there's a different respect there because they know guys like Kane and Taves so well. They know the DeBrincats who have been around now for a while. They know that the Chicago team gave them a whale of a game in Chicago.
Yeah.
Another game where the Avs got out early and then kind of had to work their way back into it after giving it all back. So I don't know. I have not thought about this game at all, which is either a result of my crazy weekend or
some other things going on.
The fact that I think that we're in for a turbo dunk here.
Turbo dunk time!
I think that there's a better chance of a turbo dunk than something bad happening. Not that it's something bad can happen. I mean, at some point you're due.
A loss will come eventually.
You've got 15 in a row.
Yeah,
at some point,
it can't keep going forever.
15-16 Blackhawks roll into the Avs barn on a 25-game win streak.
Yeah,
they got turbo dunked
regulation thing that they had going on.
Yeah.
That was a fun night.
Yeah.
All right, we got to talk about him. Marc-Andre Fleury. He will start tonight for Chicago.
Not for Colorado.
Not for Colorado. Probably not ever for Colorado, given the last couple of games we've seen from Kemper and Francouz.
Yeah, I don't. If you're Ken Holland, how is that? How are you not just like,
please?
I mean, I guess if Fleury's like, no, then that's that, right? But Fleury in Colorado doesn't, for me.
It's making less sense by the day.
It hasn't made any sense since the Kemper deal.
Yep.
And it has never made sense from that moment moving forward. Man.
Yep. But even like now there was that sec that was like, all right, we could talk ourselves into this because Kemper still hasn't figured it out by February or something.
Sure.
Even that now is looking pretty unlikely. So I don't think Fleury is going to be coming to Colorado. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other interesting pieces in Chicago. We've had the conversation about Kane and Taves before, how probably not realistic to move those guys in season.
They went hard in the offseason only to find themselves right back on the seller market.
Yep. And the most interesting name that's been floated out there, it's rumors, so take it for what you will, but Alex DeBrincat's name has been out there a little bit.
I know that we're doing I know that this is a quick version of the pregame show, but if you were the new, even the AGM, let's just assume that the GM-less Blackhawks are empowering their interim GM to do whatever that he wants, right? Not implementing a vision, whatever, but let's just pretend that this is the world, because that being the case is why I don't think a guy like DeBrincat is... Yeah. Like, they might be gauging his market for summer to lay the groundwork for the summer.
Well, they actually have a plan.
But they're not letting an AGM or an interim GM move Alex DeBrincat at the deadline.
How old is he right now?
I don't actually know. I think it's
24,
I think he's
25,
the same age as Gerard, but I'm not sure.
Maybe
is he kind of that building piece for the next generation?
He should be, but...
Yeah, I know, yeah.
If he was 26, I would say no, but he's younger than that. So I don't think that because there's an interim GM in place, I don't think they're going to let that guy make the big decision, but let's pretend that they would.
Yeah.
Would you test the Seth Jones market? I understand like what happened in the offseason, but you lost the sunk cost fallacy. you move on. If you can get value in return for him right now, would you consider it? And
As
truly,
Chicago? Absolutely.
yes, and truly engage a rebuild.
Not Colorado.
I'm not. No. This is not an Avs thing. This is from a Chicago
I'd do
perspective.
dirty things in a back alley to get that contract off the books.
Okay. All right.
If I'm Chicago, I want out immediately, for sure. Okay, we do have to move quickly here as we got a little bit of a late start. So let's say the 3 words in hockey that may annoy AJ the most. Full 60 minutes.
Okay.
Obviously, those words are a little bit charged, right? You have to understand there's 2 teams on the ice, and both teams are trying to win the hockey game. It's not like one team just stops and the other team is also stopping. They're going against each other. But I think it's safe to say the Avs can be more consistent across an entire hockey game than balling out in the first period and kind of just chilling for the next 2. Yeah?
Yeah, you would hope. I mean, there's not much else to say. I agree with AJ on this one. Like, there's 2 teams on the ice, right? Like, you're not always going to be dominant. People start to read in between the lines that there's nothing there really.
Yeah,
to read in between.
If you have an 8-minute stretch where nothing happens for either team, if you're leading, isn't that a good thing?
Yeah.
Like,
and all teams, even the bad teams in the NHL, are still really good.
yeah. I mean, you look at the bottom feeders of the NHL outside of Arizona. Like, Montreal was just here.
Yeah.
And you're looking at like guys like Tyler Toffoli and Jonathan Duran and Josh Anderson and like Jeff Petrie. Like, we're talking about good NHL players here. You know, Chicago, Patrick Kane is still an elite NHL player.
Yeah.
At any given shift can do something that you don't want. Yeah. You know, Jonathan Taves is still solid. You have Alex DeBrincat as one of the better, a top 30 goal scorer in the NHL. Like, you have some quality hockey players out there. You know?
But it might happen tonight, too, because the Blackhawks really like to give up the lead in the first period, especially this year. I think they're almost doubled up.
And the Avs are nasty at home in the first.
Yeah.
Like, the Avs figured out a couple years ago that they could end games in the first period at home.
Yep.
Because they get out, they score early, the crowd is vibing, and then it just turns into that symbiotic relationship.
They skate downhill for another 20 minutes.
Right,
and
like the
it's
crowd
3-0,
gets going crazy. It amps them up, and they go out and they do something crazy, and the crowd goes crazier, and it amps them up. And then, you know, they just feed off of each other. And we've seen the Avs have been dominant in the first periods at home. Yeah. And look, if you can get out early, and if you can get out and get a couple behind Fleury quickly, you're running downhill.
Especially against teams at the bottom, right? Teams that are looking for a reason to go away.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're probably still a month into before teams really start packing it in.
Yeah.
Like the bad teams really start being like, F this, right?
After the All-Star break is really where you start to see if you have a good stretch from the beginning of the All-Star break, like after it, right? Like,
yeah.
That's when teams will be like, oh, maybe we do have a shot.
Well, especially veteran teams where they know better.
Yeah.
Like, you see, like, the Arizonas, like, do you think Andrew Ladd's going to be going 400% here in a month? You know? Like, guys that think they're getting traded will.
Yeah.
Obviously, but, like, Andrew Ladd or Louis Eriksson or, like, those guys.
Playing out their careers.
Yeah, like, that are just finishing bad contracts in other places.
They're playing golf.
Yeah,
they're loving it.
You know, they're out there just chilling, but we're not, I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And there are enough young guys still on the Blackhawks that are trying to figure it out, trying to prove they belong. Like, there's only so many Calvin DeHaans on that roster.
Sure,
you know, and DeHaan is a guy. There's your deadline guy. Like, that's the guy that you're looking at on the deadline, and you're like, this guy's playing for a job elsewhere. He can't pack it in because he wants to go play meaningful hockey somewhere.
What about Henrik Borgström, however you say his last name?
The DU boy?
Have you given up on him?
I gave up on him in his draft year. I didn't think he was any good.
Really? He only played 2 years at DU and then made the jump.
He was a great college player.
Oh, he was amazing. I loved watching him.
He was always perimeter for me.
Really?
I never liked him. As I did not like the chances of him jumping to the NHL. I thought he was too soft.
Yeah. He is. I mean, he is soft for his size.
Yeah. That's the thing, is that you see a guy like, oddly enough, in Chicago, a guy like Phil Kurashev. A smaller guy, has had to play on the perimeter his whole life to survive.
Yeah.
But Borgstrom's the guy that should dominate. He's too skilled. He's too skilled and he's too big, and he should be able to muscle his way into certain situations. He just doesn't.
Well, you don't want to put yourself in too many situations because Cale Makar might become your dad, like he did with Kirby Dach. So,
yeah, I'm talking about young guys in Chicago trying to figure it out, and I totally forget about Kirby Dach.
Yeah. Anyway, let's keep it rolling here. Blais's bets, the bet master himself.
Let's go.
What do we got today?
All right, man. Got to ride the hot hand, right? Taves with an assist.
Dude's
Guys
picking
feeling
up
that?
points like a machine. He really is.
I mean, I just feel like that's easy money right there. Fleury with over 30.5 saves.
Colorado does like to pour shots on this team pretty often, too. And maybe that's because their defense involves players like Seth Jones. So
The only fear that I have of a third of Fleury
dunk on him and pull him,
is
But
that after
so-
the third or fourth goal, the vet respect kicks in, where you're like, you don't want to do this to Marc-Andre Fleury.
That's true. The problem is that their backup just got injured, so now they're bringing up their AHL goalie right now.
so they might be really hesitant.
They might be hesitant before they're like, okay, let's throw this kid in and just let him get just annihilated by
look.
the Avalanche.
you let teams drop 7 on Fleury every night. He won't care if you trade him to Edmonton at that point, right?
Yeah, because what changes?
Big brain.
And then again, I guess
the
it's defense
freest
heavy.
bet on
Look at that.
DraftKings.
Makar with a half an assist at minus 130.
Makar half an assist is the freest bet on DraftKings.
Yeah,
Genuinely.
And I do have I don't have it up here, but I took Mac for first goal scorer. It just has to happen here. So.
Keep taking it until it works.
I didn't put any. I haven't put any money on it, but all day today, literally all day, I've been thinking about it, and I'm just feeling an Andre Burakovsky game.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah.
So Burakovsky, no points.
Yep. No points. -3. Here it comes. Here it comes.
All right. Thanks for hanging out with us, chat. We will be back post-game. We hope you join us for that. Also, Wednesday against Boston, we're doing a watch-along. If you're on board for that.
Oh, are we?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Word on the street is we got you on playback and on YouTube, so keep
very
your eyes
cool.
peeled for
Ooh.
whichever way you want to do it.
That'll be fun.
It should be fun. Be sure to tune into that, and we will talk to you after the game in a couple of hours here.